If you want to support the show, you can go to mwpnews.com/support, where you can pick up my latest book, Succession Planning, and all my other books that have previously been released on Kindle for only $2.99 each. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Backlog Files. I am Adam. We're going to get a few of these today because I have not been great lately in getting these out on time, considering it is now Tuesday and we're way behind. So let's go to our list and see where we are, because I seem to recall we were up to Pokemon Emerald as our next, big game we're going to be covering. Why does it always put it into view-only mode? I don't know why it does that. Whatever, I don't know why it does that. This is fucking stupid. Hang on, let me just do this real quick. Yes, Emerald was supposed to be last week. We're gonna do that first. So, Pokemon Emerald. And I think this is the first time that we get the third version of the Pokemon game that is bridging the gaps in the story between the two base games. Because in this one, like we talked about it with Crystal a few weeks back, where Pokemon Crystal doesn't have, the story for Pokemon Gold and Silver is kind of the same. It's just which of the two birds you go to first. And there really isn't a story for, for Suicune or any of the dogs. It's just, you go. There's a story expansion for, for Crystal that, when we get to it, the epilogue for Scarlet and Violet feels a little like if this was today, the way they handled the Suicune story is how they would have handled it. They would have done it the way they handled Pecharunt in the most recent ones. Regardless, that's not the point we're trying to make. The point we're trying to make is this game. It has the biggest change from the previous to this one. Because in the first game they had contests, and we talked about I think we talked about contests a little bit when we talked about Ruby and Sapphire. But the idea of the contest is you have to pick your Pokemon, you have to zhuzh them up with Pokeblocks to accentuate their stats, and there was even Phoebus was originally tied to the contest. You have to amplify the beauty stat, and then once you got it maxed out, you could evolve it into Milotic, which is a pain in the ass. Let me just say, the entire Phoebus thing was a pain in the ass. You had to fish in one specific fucking tile to find it, and the tile was randomized. It was a pain in the ass to get Phoebus. I did, because I clocked 400 hours into that game before I reset my save file, but it was not a fun, it's not an interesting thing. Regardless, the point I'm trying to make is, contests were there, and then after you did that part, there was the, there was the battle part where you had to use moves in combination to get the hearts up, which is kind of cool. But the issue was, you had to go to different towns to do it. The first one you could do was in Verdanturf. Then you had to go to, it's not Fallujah, Foliver. Fallujah was in Star Wars. Then you go to Slateport, then you go to Lilycove, and you have to do it in that order. In this one, it's all consolidated to one city because there are these battle tents everywhere, and I did not like the battle tents when I played it the first time, Emerald. The tents weren't great, and I don't think that the the way that they're handled is great. I mean, I get the point. It's kind of designed to give you this is the first time they really played with alternate battle methods, besides Double Battle, which was introduced in Ruby and Sapphire. This is the first time they were doing with gimmick battles, where it's the rental battles, the ones where your Pokemon will use whatever move they want, and all that kind of stuff. And these are things that would come into play later in the in the Battle Frontier. So I guess it's just designed to be a primer, but the rewards for beating it are not great. So even at the time, I never really wasted my time on these. I did more at the contests after playing through the game. I think taking the story the way they did and incorporating Rayquaza into the main narrative was interesting. And I think that this is where we get into the start of the third version being the definitive version of the game with additional content that, you know, I've said for the last two generations, for Sword and Shield and for Scarlet and Violet, I think the way they're handling DLC now is the preferred way for me. Because while the story changes and while there are new areas you can go to, like the magma base is separate from the aqua base, and there's the battle frontier and stuff like that, and the story is slightly different. I think if DLC was an option, I would rather do that because I don't think there's enough change in the story to warrant me spending the time to go and do all that stuff again. I don't think it's one of the things where like when I was 10 years old, yeah, I got time to replay these games. I'm gonna play right through them again. Now, playing through a narrative I've already done once, especially with the length that these games are now, it's not something that I look forward to. Because even with this, if I go back now and replay Ruby or Sapphire or replay Emerald or even Fire Red Leaf Green, I mean, and even I would say up until Black and White, the games are reasonably short. The ones now they're long. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that is just me deciding that I'm gonna go around and fuck around and do whatever I want rather than complete the story. Now, I do think that there are this is one of those things where the game would be higher up, and I think this is still going to be number one when I think hard about it. Um, I just wish there was more difference and more more there because the Battle Frontier was cool, and don't get me wrong, I do love the design of the Battle Frontier, and I think that the Battle Frontier definitely peaked with what's it called with what happened in this one. The idea that there was this this giant snake the Seviper head that you can go into, um, where it's you have to you have to battle through and get stuff. That was such a cool idea. And this is a way you can get what's it called. You could get what's his name was over here. If you use the Whalmer Pale on the tree, you would get Sudowoodo, which was a cool thing to add. Now, has this unleashed the beginning? Is this kind of the genesis point for some of the most ridiculous aspects of the Pokemon fan community? I would say yes, because if not for this game having all this stuff in it, I think we really get the start of the modern kind of Pokemon fan base, the kind of entitled. I mean, I think it's kind of gone away a little bit because I think a lot of the people who got really pissed off about not all the Pokemon being in the new games have kind of, just been like, fuck it, this is just. It's not going to do anything. Why are we, bothering to bitch about this constantly? It's one of those things where I see this and I'm like, all right, like this definitely came those all came because we see this begin with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire when they omit the Battle Frontier, and there is the Battle Frontier project has started by what's it called by the Battle Tower, and it's one of those things where it's like, all right, whatever, it is what it is, just move on with your life. That said, this is the definitive version. And I would say, arguably, there is no third version of any game that does not end up ranking higher than the base game. So this game is going to be solidly at our what's it called? At our number one slot. So this will be taking up that top spot again. Where let's go through our rankings. Pokemon Emerald. Number 13 is now Hey You Pikachu. Number 12, Pokemon Pinball. Number 11, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge or Pokemon Puzzle League. Number 10, the Trading Card Game. Number 9, Red and Blue. Number 8, Pokemon Stadium. Number 7, Pokemon Stadium 2. Number 6, Pokemon Snap. Number 5, Pokemon Yellow. Number 4, Gold and Silver. Number 3, Crystal. Number 2, Ruby and Sapphire. Number 1, Emerald. Our next one we're going to do is going to be Fire Red and Leaf Green. So let's see where those stack up, because that could be an interesting conversation. Because there's a lot of cool stuff in there and a lot of baffling decisions. But we'll wrap up there for today. Until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.